Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of People Who Inspire. I'm excited to have a very passionate conversation today. And I think it's been quite some time now since we last had our episode. So, in 2026, this is going to be our first episode. And I'm really, really excited to have some wonderful people joining me today for People Who Inspire. Mind you that we are streaming on all platforms. So we have Facebook, we have LinkedIn, YouTube, and also Twitter. I'm going to bring my guest into the studio now. Hello, Esther. Hello, Ama. How are you?
Hi, friends. I'm well. How are you?
I'm well too.
I'm doing well. Ama, how's life?
I think that it's all good. We're so excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Yes. It's really amazing. Like I was saying earlier, that for me, having companies or initiatives like Afrotoons, on the continent is paramount. It's something, it's indispensable. So for those of you watching, we are going to delve into animations in Africa and how we need a paradigm shift. I have these two wonderful guests here, the CEO and co-founder of Afrotoons, and we also have the Chief Content Officer, Ama, also here in our midst. They're going to introduce themselves pretty much very soon. But before we do the introduction, I want us to watch a video so you get an idea of what I mean by the innovations and the paradigm shifting content that Afrotunes is creating. Amazing. I like everything about what I just saw. So I'm guessing, I think, Esther, you're telling me earlier that this was the first trailer that I think you put out there. So I see Selassie as Uncle Kofi, names that I can relate with and names that the African child can relate with. So before we get into what we just played, could you tell us a bit about yourself, Esther? After which maybe Ama would also introduce herself.
Yes, would love to. Well, thank you so much, Prince, for having us. We're so excited to have this conversation with you. My name is Esther Paul. I am the co-founder and CEO of Afrotoons. I'm originally from Ghana, where I grew up. And now I live in Washington, D.C. with two children, two little girls, and my husband. And my background is, I originally started my career actually in the education space, implementing large-scale education programs across sub-Saharan Africa, and then transitioned to do a lot of strategy work in the tech space, specifically helping to make the platforms more safe for vulnerable communities. So I kind of have a wide range of skills, but my passion is in storytelling. I've always wanted to tell African stories, and this is how I'm doing it through Afrotoons. So really excited to be here and to tell you more about our journey. Oh, Prince, you're on mute.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah.
Sorry, I muted myself. Yeah, I was saying that we want to hear a little bit about you as well. Just who you are, who is Ama.
Hi everyone. So my name is Ama. I'm the Chief Content Officer of Afrotoons. My background is in media production and storytelling. So I started my career at TED in New York, TED Talks at the forefront of ideas, working across TV, social media, writing scripts, talking through big ideas that changed the world. And then I moved to civic engagement, where I was working at Builders as a producer. And so Afrotoons has been something that we've been building in the middle of all these things, in the middle of marriage, children, all that good stuff. I'm really excited to be here and to talk more about how Selassie's adventures came to be.
Whoa, but that's really awesome, Ama. So technology, entertainment, and design. I love TED Talks. I watched almost all the So I'm really happy to have someone like you here. So I want to start with this, right? A lot of us in Africa, we see problems all around us, right? And a lot of times we just gloss over those problems. We just see it as, yeah, it's normal not to have electricity, or it's normal not to have content for kids. So this is to you, Esther. Like, why exactly did you decide to take on this Herculean challenge of creating animation for the African child or the African continent? Like, what was happening in your life at the time that kind of triggered that necessity for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in order to answer that question, I have to take you back a little bit. As I mentioned, I started off my career in the education space, and I got to do a lot of interesting work traveling across the continent, and visiting schools to really, kind of manage the different projects that we were working on. And one of the key things that I saw during my visits was I noticed the type of content that these children were consuming. So these were children in like Mali, in Senegal, in Ghana, and most of the books that they had in their classroom, they were all Western. And so I started thinking about the type of media I consumed growing up. And I loved watching Cartoon Network, and I read a lot of storybooks, and I couldn't think of not one African storybook or African animation show that I watched. And this was kind of an aha moment for me, because at that time I was like well in my 20s, and it took so many years for me to have that realization. So for fun, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to tackle this problem in my own way. So I started writing children's pictures. And they were based on my experiences growing up in Ghana, my travels across the continent. And my goal was I was going to publish these books. I was going to create a literacy center in Ghana. And that was kind of my dream. But God had other plans. So one day my friend was getting married in Ireland, and I almost didn't even go to that wedding. But I ended up going, and I was staying with one of my good friends. And he had roommates, and one of the roommates happened to be my now co-founder. And so we met for the first time, and I was telling him about my children's picture books ideas, and he was telling me how he wanted to make an impact on the continent. And then he was like, do you want to work together and create something? And, my naive self was like, oh yeah, sure. Let's work together, two complete strangers, and create something. So we every Sunday we met virtually, because he was living in Ireland, I was in the US, and we met virtually for 6 months, and we started building this concept of Afrotoons. We all loved telling African stories. We loved animation. We were like, well, why not create Afrotoons, a company that tells authentic African stories for children worldwide? And back then, honestly, I didn't really know much about what went into animation, and I didn't know what it meant to be an entrepreneur. And I think ignorance is so bliss, because if I knew everything today, maybe I wouldn't be here. So we started building, and that's how I met Ama, because I was like, okay, I don't have all the skill sets here. I need someone who is a really great storyteller. So I started reaching out to my contacts, and someone who I don't even remember how I met that person introduced me to Ama. We had a conversation and we clicked, and the rest is history. I don't know, Ama, if you want to add anything there.
Oh no, I mean, that was it. I think I had one conversation with Esther, and at the time I was also deeply frustrated about the state of I think it was during COVID or the beginning of COVID. Yeah. And I remember everyone is at home, we're trying to watch content. I didn't have a child at the time, but I just remember thinking, oh, I'd love to go back and watch cartoons that I haven't watched in a long time. And while I was watching, I was like, oh, these characters are from somewhere else. What is going on? And I think that was my aha moment. And I think you don't really notice it when you're a kid, because the nuance of life and understanding how the things you implicitly see explicitly and implicitly affect you, I hadn't really clicked until that moment as well. Also in my 20s, where I was like, what's going on here? I mean, I'd always wanted to tell African stories as well. So it wasn't until that when I got that call from Esther, because at the time I tried writing a few stories myself. I tried to do some self-publishing and stuff, but it's much harder to do this when you're not in a team. So by the time I got that call from Esther, it was a no-brainer. And I was like, oh, also I just loved that was like Esther, the one leading it. Having a woman as like your boss is like one of the most wonderful things that can ever happen. So I was just so excited. And I said, please, let's do this. But still, we met every Sunday for 5 years.
Yes. A lot of Sundays.
Wow. That's whoa, that's commitment right there. Like, so I was thinking, listening to your story, both of you. What is still I'm trying to understand is like why this pursuit? Like again, it still comes down to the fact that there has to be something maybe deeper that the both of you and your co-founders have that you want to take on this. Like, is it, I don't know, do you feel that it's a calling? Do you like, what is the intrinsic motivation? Like, what is really propelling the both of you to, for 5 years, meet every Sunday and then having the launch and all that, coming together, doing the fundraising and all that? Like, what is that motivation? Like, what is really propelling the both of you? I'm really curious.
Well, I can say for me, I've always wanted to have an impact on the continent and work with young people. That's my goal in life. If I can die knowing that, I've been able to impact the youth on the continent, I would be happy. And I think, animation is such a powerful tool, right? The things that you consume in the media, it shapes the way you see yourself. It shapes the way you carry yourself. It shapes what you believe is even possible for you, right? And so being able to have our stories on the screen for children on the continent and around the world to watch is so powerful. It's so, so powerful. And I think that it can really make a difference in how young people see themselves and what they think is possible. And so for me, it's being able to change mindsets. It's being able to inspire young people. It's being able to tell stories that have never been told before. Africa has 54 countries, over 2,000 languages spoken, so much folklore, so many hidden stories. Why isn't this out there? Like, can you imagine if it was, how powerful that would be? And so I think the fact that this is such a big problem, it hasn't been solved yet. So many people are trying to solve it. And there has been a lot of advancements throughout the past couple of years. But the opportunity in the market is so big. It's so big. And if we're able to accomplish it, the impact is even greater. So for me, it's about tackling a problem that I see as a really big problem that has huge potential and something that I care deeply about, right? This is not just, I'm doing Afrotoons because I have nothing else to do with my life. No, I have a very busy life. This means something deeper to me. And now that I am a mom, I didn't start Afrotoons when I had kids, but now that I am a mom, the calling is different. Like, I cannot go to bed knowing that I am not pushing forward this mission for my children and for the next generation. So that's where it comes from for me.
Yeah, I mean,
and Ama, what is yours?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me well? I'm just making sure. Yes. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So for me, the intrinsic it starts, I'm going to go even further back because everything Esther said I resonate with. So when I've loved writing stories since I learned to write. So about 4 or 5 when I started learning to read and write. My mom used to buy me empty notebooks for my birthday because I just wanted to write and fill them with stories and make up all these stories. But something I realized only later on in life is the first story I ever wrote was called Hey Anna. And it was about a girl who was at home and she would go to her neighbors' houses and they would play with other kids. But then it was only later in life that I realized, wait, why was it called Hey Anna and not Hey Ama? And it's because I could even at that age, you don't even realize, I was 8 maybe. It didn't even occur to me that I could make myself the main character in the story. And I think it's extremely dangerous because I mean, just telling my own personal story, over time, it took me a long time before I developed self-confidence. I've always been confident in kind of my intelligence, extra, but the way that I appeared, the darkness of my skin, all these things, it was so difficult for me to find myself to be a beautiful person, to be a person worthy of love, to be a person worthy of all these kinds of things, because I think I just never seen it. I'd never seen it. And it's one thing to see it in the world around you, but we pick up messaging from what's on TV, from what's being propelled in front of the world. And so if we're not propelling the kind of stories that give children who look like us, children who speak like us, who sound like us, if we're not giving them a core foundation to build off of, to give them courage, to give them curiosity, to give them feelings of safety in their culture, then we are creating a generation of kids who are going to grow up without realizing all the things that are missing, and they'll go looking for it somewhere else, somewhere outside of their culture. They'll go looking for that validation elsewhere. So for me, it was like existential. It's an existential problem as much as it is structural. Because it's structural because the animation industry still needs to be built within Africa. It's structural because storytelling still needs a lot of formalization. But at the core of it, it is an existential threat for us to not be telling stories with people and characters who look and sound like us at scale. And so that's really what Afrotoons for me means. It is the gift to my childhood self that I wish I'd had at the time.
That's poignant. And Ama, I wanted to ask you this. And since you're the chief content officer, the names of the characters, right? So I see Selassie, I see Ziggy, I see Uncle Kofi. And the reason why I fell in love with the premiere was the character names. And for me, Uncle Kofi is my favorite character. I mean, when he got back and he realized he was in trouble, for taking the kids out, like that was, so what really influenced the choice of the names? Right. What influenced the choice of the characters? So not just the names. The names are relatable, but also the characters. What is behind that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not as poignant of a story. We are Ghanaian, and so we wanted the characters to be Ghanaian, right? So we wanted to draw on this series from our personal experience, and so within us, we have people from different tribes. Their names are representing different places in Ghana. I think Esther's family they are of the Ewe tribe. My family is Akan. There are people who are Ga, people who are and so we wanted to make sure in Selassie and Edem's family, they are an Akan and Ewe mixed family, and so we use names from both tribes, and that's kind of where it comes from. But then on their journey, they'll meet lots of people from different ethnic backgrounds, from different cultural backgrounds across the countries, and within the Ghana episode as well, we'll explore all these identities. So the names really come down to the fact that we are Ghanaian, so we want to make a Ghanaian show with Ghanaian kids' names, and we don't want it to feel exotic or strange. It should feel like this is our everyday,
Yeah. And just to add there, I think for me growing up, well, I have an uncle called Uncle Kofi, and he played a really instrumental parts in my childhood, because every other Sunday he would pick us up and take us on adventures. And these were like very simple things. Like if you're from Ghana, like he would take us to Osu, Frankie's to go get ice cream, right? Or he would take us to the beach. Yeah. And he had a quad bike, and he used to like ride on the bike and like raise, he would raise the bike. It was, yeah. So I remember my childhood being filled with so many great memories from my uncle. And so when I was also thinking of these characters and these names, Uncle Kofi was inspired also by my own uncle, because I remember, how he really contributed to my childhood in a positive way. And I think we can all see, different parts of our journeys in these characters.
Yeah, and I also realized from watching the first episode that I think one of the things you seek to do is to kind of remove the boundaries between African countries. I see that, the characters can, teleport or go to one country, have fun, and then come back to another country. Am I correct to imagine or to think that you're trying to kind of remove all those, artificial barriers or borders that we have across the continent? Is that kind of an implicit agenda you have?
I'll let Ama take this one.
100%, yes. I think so. One of the things about being African is it's very odd, because it's cheaper to go to Italy or to France than it is for me in Ghana to go to maybe Nigeria or Senegal, right? It's like the borders that are drawn, which are all artificial borders, by the way, have created this separation between African countries that makes it so difficult for us to know our neighbors. And so the premise of the show was not just about this family who's exploring and understanding cultures, but on another level, it's also about what would it look like if Africans traveled within Africa really easily? What would it look like if we shared and understood each other's cultures? If the feeling of warmth that you get from African cultures all over, we could share in that experience together without any barriers. What would that really look like? And so that's why the concept of the magical passports came, because I mean, if you just wave a wand and then you could be in Senegal or you could be in Lesotho, I mean, you know, wouldn't you? And maybe that's an implicit kind of signal that maybe that's what we want in the airlines as well.
Yeah, I when I saw the magical passport, I wish I had one, because I think I was having a discussion with some colleagues this week or some friends this week, and we're talking about the passport, how the passport implicitly marginalizes the African in general, right? So yes, I mean, it's a very good way to kind of ensure that you don't have criminals or, you know, recalcitrant people just coming into your country. But also on the flip side, right, it's a way, I mean, like you rightly said, Ama, if I have a passport, my passport determines how I'm treated at immigration, right? It determines what documents are required for me in order to get a visa. So when I think about this, and maybe this would be a difficult question, but maybe to Esther, with this magical passport, right? If I'm a child and I'm watching that as a magical passport, and then I grow up to the reality of a Ghanaian passport, right? How do I reconcile that? Like how do we kind of prepare the kids that, yes, magical passport in the animations is fantastic, but you grow up to a Ghanaian passport and you are limited, you know, you need visas for everything. And sometimes and just to give a bit of context why I'm saying this, and maybe Ama can relate with this, because I got a scholarship from TED a few years ago in 2013. And this is why I'm giving this premise. So TED had a collaboration with the Gates Foundation. So they had this TEDx exchange scholarship for TEDx organizers, and I'd organized 2 TEDx events in Ghana. So I was selected. In Africa, there were 6 of us. In West Africa, there were 2 of us. And then, so I think the Gates Foundation was going to pay like $120,000 to sponsor each one of us. Wow. So I apply for the visa, and then I go to the American Embassy. I was doing my MBA at the time, final year, finishing my thesis. And then they asked me 2 questions. The first question was, are you married? I was 21 or 22. Why would I be married? Second question, do you have kids? I said no. Before I ended the word no, it was already refused, right? So there I was, a young Ghanaian, being part of this prestigious selection process, went through several interviews, and then being told, because I'm in my 20s and I'm not married, I'm a student, I'm not married, I don't have kids, I can't get access to the scholarship. So that's why I'm kind of bringing it back home, right, to the both of you. Help me with this. So how do we, I don't know, I don't have an answer to it, but maybe you have an idea. How do we reconcile the utopian kind of, the utopian world we want to see with the reality of the African child?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do not have the perfect answer to that question, but what I will say is that, I think the reason why representation is important, and, the reason why animation is so powerful, is because when you watch something on the screen, it gives you, and you kind of see your world there, right? So it inspires you, right? It makes you believe that, you can do something impossible, right? That you can be a leader, that you can change things, that you can, do all these things, right? So for us, we're not trying to dupe people, we know the reality of our passports, but right, it's more so like, how do you inspire people to think, right? Like, how do we create this Africa where we can easily go to different countries, right? And, we can learn about our cultures, and we don't even want to go to the West, right? We want to stay in Africa. We want to build, we want to explore. So those are the concepts that we are really focused on. And, I think that I hope that in the next couple of years that we see more Africans wanting to stay on the continent, or wanting to go back home, right, to build, to change things, to run for office, right? And I think that's where the change will come. And Selassie's Adventures, our job there is just to inspire that change, right, and to help people see themselves making that change and wanting to travel across Africa. So yeah, that's the best answer I can give you right now. I don't know if Ama, you want to add anything there?
Yeah. So I can add a little bit to that. It is a very big question. It's a very big question that has lots of implications in terms of like politics and geopolitics and all that. I will say though that I think one of the things that Afrotoons and companies like ours, like Afrotoons, what our goal is that by the time the child who's watching this show has grown up, that not only would we have changed the perceptions about our passports, about ourselves, but we would have created the kind of citizens that are so very proud of who they are, that the systems that are leading to this kind of inequity would also be changing, right? Like, it's not just, that's not to say that because someone watched Afrotoons that they're going to suddenly aspire to be the president, but why not as well, right? Like the kind of things that we are talking about.
Why not?
The kinds of stories that we're sharing, the kinds of ways that characters go and meet new people. They understand that we are all really similar, that the lines that divide us are not really divisions of spirit or character. I think once more and more episodes of this show come out, more and more people on the continent make this kind of content, I think that in itself is going to change the kind of narrative that we ourselves have accepted for so long, that somehow our African passport is less than, right? Or that we need to I worked at TED, maybe I can say this, but like TED, if you want to get Africans to do stuff, you should come do the thing on the continent, right? So that visa is not a problem for many people. So things like that, I think Selassie's Adventures at the core of it is inspiring that kind of change structurally at scale. So by the time the child who watches this is 20, it'll be a completely different Africa.
Amen to that.
Perfect. I love the answers you give, because these are realistic answers and they make sense. I think, and that's why for me, the topic here is about paradigm changing, kind of content that you are making. It's really about the mindset, knowing very well, like you said, like when I was growing up, the confidence of, my peers, like even myself, sometimes I had an answer to certain questions, but I'll just keep quiet, right? I'll just be silent because I didn't feel confident enough. But then when I watched the first episode, the confidence exhibited by Selassie, going to another country, already meeting market women, interacting with them, that for me, I think is what, that's where the value really is. The fact that an African child can see themselves in these characters and kind of already project that same confidence of that character in their everyday lives. So that's, for me, it's really where the value that I'm seeing. And let's come back to animation, right? Let's really come to this. So how do you see, and maybe you can help me answer this, both of you, do you see a skill gap? So let's say I have an idea to start Afrotunes. Do I have enough content, how do you call it, curators? Do I have enough animation, specialists, people who have the skill set to be able to create characters and all that? From your experience building Afrotunes, is there enough skill set on a continent to kind of keep going?
Yeah, I can start with that. So yes, I think there's a lot of, talent on the continent, right? We work with a lot of talented creatives. So I don't think that's, it's not the number of creatives. It's more so the opportunities that are available for them to kind of hone in their skills, right? So a lot of the times, we work with different creatives, and some of them were able to go to school and learn about animation formally, and others are self-taught. So they're teaching themselves different aspects of animation, right? So they're not necessarily experts in one thing, right? Not experts in character design or or rigging, but it's more so that they're learning, they're kind of jack of all trades, right? Which is fine to a certain degree, but we really need to create the institutions and the opportunities for creatives to really deep dive and hone in their skills. So there is more of a resource and I guess like educational gap, in my opinion, right now. But the talent is there. I mean, I'm sure you share like some of the art that we see from our creatives is just like mind blowing, right? But we just need ways to continue to build their capacity and give them the resources, the tools, the opportunities for them to take their talent to the next level. So that's what the gap is, what I've seen. Ama, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think Esther has said most of it. I think it's an institutional problem, but I know I don't ever want someone to feel like, oh, just because the systems that exist in like maybe America, etc., where they have distributors and all these people who are willing to pay big money to get your show, just because we don't have those systems here doesn't mean that you shouldn't start or that you shouldn't work on it, because systems are built because we determine the kind of systems that we build, right? So Afrotoons, we have character designers, we have people that we're working with who do rigging, we have some people who are background designers, and together we create our own little collective, right? So, and eventually we'll figure out that distribution structure. So I'm just to answer your original question about would we like, how would you encourage someone who is kind of starting but doesn't have the resources, and it's just just start. Because but also remember that each individual person is a resource. Like as long as you have knowledge in your brain and you have a pen and paper, you can draw, you can write, that in itself is enough of a resource. You just need to find like-minded people and create a little unit, and you can build anything. Look at Afrotoons. How many people?
I love that.
And now.
No, I love that. I think you're both like entrepreneurs at heart. I think I see that in both of you. And so when it comes to the African narrative, and I think that's what Afrotoons is trying to achieve, right? To reinforce the positive narratives and also to introduce the lesser known narratives. I was reading somewhere. In fact, I interviewed Kuku Amanfo. She's an architect, and she mentioned something to me that got my attention. And I was thinking about Afrotoons when she told me. She said they found a diary, right, like a journal of one of the explorers, I think British explorers or so. They had come to the Ashanti region, right, in those days. And in that journal, they discovered, he made notes that the kind of, water systems and drainage systems that at the time the Asantis were using, he had not seen before. It was almost similar to the water closet that we have now today. So now the question that came to my mind was, I didn't know this. So imagine like Afrotoons telling some of these lesser known narratives, right, to the world, like, or the Yasantua story, how the British were like, who is this woman leading these people to fight us and winning these battles and so forth. So now that brings me to my question. Now, what are some of the, let's say, narratives that we need to change about Africa, and how is Afrotoons positioning itself to kind of rewrite those narratives?
I'm going to let you start this one.
Okay, all right. So the main narratives that we want to change, I think first we'll start with like the individual. So the first thing is every child deserves a life of courage, curiosity, and creativity. And they deserve to see that innately within themselves from a very young age, whether or not anyone around them has reinforced that. And most of the time, the way that children reinforce that is through media. And so for us, our first theory of change is that the narratives that we are changing is that innately as a child, you deserve to be brave, to be strong, to feel beautiful, and to feel seen and heard. And you deserve to see that in the kind of characters that we present to you. That's number one. Then we have the overall now we're moving from the individual to the structure and the society. There are lots of, you throw a stone and you hear like a negative perception about an African, right? There are so many things that have been said or that people feel or that structures have kind of put in place. For example, visa. The World Cup is happening and most of Ghana's support team didn't get to go because their visas were denied, even though they were part of it, right? I mean, there are so many things that are that are not equitable about the way Africans are seen. But I think the most important, I don't want to spend too much time talking about what people think. I think the most important thing is to understand, how do we Africans see ourselves, and how can we start changing the way that we've internalized those negative messages. So it really comes down to, how does the content that we are creating give you a new internalization that is positive, that is encouraging, and that makes you want to stand up and do something for who you are. And I think that's really what our messaging is. Esther, do you have anything else?
Yeah, and I would just say, just in terms of, you talked about like what type of narratives do we want to touch on, and like you shared like how you didn't know that story, right? And so with Afrotunes, we're also trying to find stories or aspect of our cultures that we don't really talk about. It's not really visible, right? And in order to do that, we actually partner very closely with cultural consultants in different countries and different partners, because we do understand that we as a company, we don't have all the answers, we don't have all the knowledge, but there are people out there that do have this information, right? And so it's being very strategic about our partnerships, and ensuring that whatever we're presenting to the world is something that is fresh, it's unique, it's told from a different angle, and it's something that we are excited to watch it, but our children are also excited to watch it too, right? Because our content is for children, but we want parents to sit down with their kids and also enjoy it and also learn something new. So that's also important to us.
Yeah, and that feels culturally authentic.
No, I think that's yeah. Yes. That was actually coming to the question of authenticity. So I'm glad Ama mentioned that, because I was driving into that. So what are you doing, right, differently as Afrotunes to make sure that your contents and your narratives are authentic? And like, from your eyes as Afrotunes, what is your definition of authenticity? Like, what is your view on authenticity, and what are you doing to ensure that you keep that authenticity in all your content?
Do you want to go, or should I go?
Yeah, I can go. So I think structurally, one of the things that we are always making sure of is, we have to always ask ourselves, what does the average typical person, where we're making this story from, what do they sound like? So voiceovers are a very important part of creating the authentic feel of a place, because the kind of, I mean, in Ghana, we have different accents depending on different things, like socioeconomic level or exposure to the foreign markets, or all this other stuff. And it's very important for us that the people that we get to do the voiceovers for the characters sound like they're from here. So one of the things that it's very surprising, but when you're building a company, so many people give you advice. And one of the pieces of advice that we got, sometimes even from very well-exposed people who understand the cultural problem that we are dealing with, not having enough African stories, is like, oh, but they shouldn't sound too Ghanaian. They shouldn't sound too, I think, what did they say? Too local. They should sound like they were schooled abroad. And I was like, why would they sound like they're schooled abroad if they're from Ghana and we are all living here? What's wrong with sounding like you're from Ghana, Yeah. So that's one of the things. I think creating authenticity is about really just making stories about and using children and using people who are from here, who can speak some of the local language, if not all of it, and using those things is really important to get that as part of the authenticity. I think that's one. Then another thing, as Esther mentioned, is the cultural consultants, because we're not just making stories about Ghana, right? If we're going to visit every country in Africa, that's 54 places, we need to make sure that wherever we go, especially when we don't have any experience in being in those places, that they are well represented by culture. We can't do the thing that people from outside of Africa do to us, where you come in with this voyeuristic eye and you just assume that, oh, they must be X, Y, and Z. No. So we get people on the ground, people who are teachers, people who are tour guides, people who are, they are people who live and work in the communities, and they give us very specific details and advice. If you go back and look at the Selassie's Adventures episode 1, the opening, when they first land in Nairobi, and Uncle Kofi says, hey, there's a zoom out. I want you to go back and look at that zoom out, then go look at the picture from the Thai market, the real market. It is almost an exact replica, and that's intentional. The backgrounds that we use, the background, you can hear background speaker voiceovers when they first enter the market, and they're speaking Swahili. They're speaking different languages, and they're using the local pidgin Swahili. So it's small details like this that you don't know if you are from Ghana, from Kenya, you pick it up and you feel valued. And I think that's when we think about authenticity. That's what we mean, that you have to really base yourself in the culture for real, not as a voyeur, not as someone who's coming to teach them about something. Really be part of the culture. So that's really, from a content lens, that's how we think about it.
Yeah, I echo everything you just said. I think you put it together so well. And I think working on Selassie's Adventures has been a really humbling experience for us, and very educational, because as Ama says, we go in there not assuming that we know anything about these countries. We go in there really wanting to learn. And it's important when you're working with cultural consultants that, you're working with different types of people, because at the end of the day, everybody kind of, sometimes, you get different information, right? So how do you validate that information is when people are saying the same thing, right? And it's been a fascinating journey for us, but cultural authenticity is something that we deeply care about, and it's something that Selassie's Adventures is really trying to portray. And you will see that in episode 2 as well, that's coming out tomorrow, which we are very excited about.
Yay! Yeah, I'm looking forward to tomorrow's episode 2. And talking about episode 2, so should we expect like how many episodes? Maybe you don't want to divulge that information, but should we expect like more episodes every week? What is the cadence? Is it like every week, every month, or how does it work?
Yeah, so season 1 has 5 episodes. So obviously episode 1 is out on YouTube. It came out on Africa Day. Episode 2 is coming out tomorrow, and we can expect episode 3, 4, and 5 to come out between July and September. That's kind of the cadence we're working with. And yeah, we're excited to see where the series goes and the reactions. Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to tomorrow, actually. And I think that's my next question. So I'm thinking about the future, right? Like, of course, the episodes coming up. Should we see or expect let's say an episode that is done in, let's say, Swahili or any of such languages? Is that something? Is it far-fetched?
Sorry, you broke a little. Could you repeat the question?
Oh, okay. No, yeah, okay. So no worries. No worries. I was saying that talking about the future and the next episodes that are coming, is it far-fetched to say that, okay, we're going to have an episode where the entirety of the episode is in Swahili, or maybe in Ewe, or I don't know, or like maybe 60% of it is in Ewe, or I don't know. It's just my own fantasy of seeing something like that. Do you think I will get to that point, or?
So we are planning on making sure that the episodes are available in different languages. And I'm not sure about Ewe, but definitely, some of the major languages on the continent. But Ewe would be cool. But it's definitely something in the future that we're working on.
It will be cool. And I think my last kind of sort of questions is about building in Africa, right? What has building Afrotoons taught you? And maybe I'll ask this to Esther, since you are the CEO. I know you did some fundraising, I think last year or so, and it's part of the process of building this great, company, what has building in Africa taught you, as a co-founder and CEO? Are there any lessons that you would probably want to share with the viewers?
Yeah, so I think I have a different view on entrepreneurship now that I'm an entrepreneur. A lot of times you see businesses pop up, they're doing well. You don't really think of what goes behind it, right? You just see it, you experience it. But now, when I see a successful business, I'm like, wow, what did you do? Especially when it's on the continent, right? It's even more impressive because I think Africans and specifically African entrepreneurs are one of the most resilient people out there. The obstacles that are faced every day to get your company running are tremendous obstacles. And I don't want to dwell so much on the negative, right? Because there is also a lot of positive. But I will say that one is that you need a lot of resilience to build on the continents, right? That's number one, because doors are going to be shut. There are going to be opportunities that you will probably not get, but you have to find a way to move forward and find other ways to reach your goal. So that's one. If you don't have the resilience, I would just say, please back away from entrepreneurship. Two, I think, I think relationships matter a lot, especially back home. Who you know is really important. So always making sure that you're putting yourself out there and you're meeting different types of people, you're sharing your work, because you'll meet someone who will tell you about an amazing opportunity, right? And then you apply for that opportunity. But if you don't go out there and really connect with people, you will miss out on a lot of things. So I think networking is really, really important. So in terms of the obstacles, I would just say at a high level, I think our biggest obstacle has been in terms of financial, right? Like, where are all the opportunities? Where are the grants we can apply to, right? Where are the investors, right? Where are people who are really, really investing in African animation? A lot of the times we don't necessarily find them on the continent, and you have to go outside of the continent for these opportunities. And I can even give a very simple example. 2 years ago, when we were trying to do the crowdfunding for Selassie's Adventures, Afrotoons is registered in both Ghana and the US. In order to get on platforms like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, you have to have a US bank account or European bank accounts, right? You can't have a Ghanaian bank account and be on these platforms. So just doing a simple thing like crowdfunding was a huge challenge for us at the time, because at that time we were just registered in Ghana, right? So we had to look for other ways to be on those platforms. And that's how the US registration also came into play, because we needed both in order to have more opportunities available to us. And I always ask myself, people who don't have the opportunity to, and something else that others do is that they would partner with other organizations based in the US to do crowdfunding, right? So I asked myself, how would one go about it if they didn't have the opportunity to open a registration in the US, or they didn't have partners in the West, right? How would you do crowdfunding? How would you raise the money? And I think those are just some of the financial and the challenges around the infrastructure, right? That we really need to resolve in order to fund our own content, right? Because animation is so expensive. People don't realize that 6 minutes video that we create costs thousands and thousands of dollars. That's why it's 6 minutes. And where is that money coming from? Yes. So those are some of the challenges that we deal with every day.
Wow. No, that's a very detailed answer, Esther. Thank you for that, because I think in the past I've had several entrepreneurs tune into the PWI, the People Who Inspire, and then they kind of always glean a lesson or two from people like you. So thanks for sharing your journey with us in that regard. I think I'll have just 2 questions left, one for Ama and then one for you, Esther. I'll start with Ama. So Ama, if you close your eyes and you picture Afrotoons, what do you see as Afrotunes in the next 5 to 10 years?
You mean in terms of the kind of things we're making? Well, I see us.
Yes, yes.
I like this question because I'm storytelling, so I'm already, storytelling in my mind. I think by in 5 years, I wouldn't say 10 because I believe in us and I have audacious goals for us and our content. In 5 years, Afrotoons will have at least 5 to 10 series on films that are being constantly watched all across the continent and globally, not just Africa, but outside, and picked up by different distributors across platforms, across mediums. We'll move into books and merchandise and all kinds of stuff. I think we'll have at least 4 or 5 solid shows and films that will be making an impact across kids' confidence, across kids' imaginations, across kids' ability to solve problems where they are. And then also, I think Afrotoons will be a household name of African animation. So when you hear Afrotoons, is that a clapping for me? Thank you. So when you hear Afrotoons, you think of Disney, Pixar, Afrotoons. They'll be said in the same sentence. That's kind of what I think. That's not what I think. That's where we are building Afrotoons to be.
No, that's fantastic. And Esther, I would want you to do the same exercise where you close your eyes and then you'd want to see that projection of Afrotunes in the next 5 to 10 years. Where do you see Afrotunes?
Yeah, I will echo everything Ama said about the content, and I will add that I want Afrotunes to be the place that all African creatives want to work at, because we are really telling fresh and unique stories, because Afrotunes provides opportunities for you to grow, for you to expand your skill sets. And lastly, I would say that our goal is also to move beyond animation, right? So how can Selassie's world expand? How can Selassie be a book, right? A toy, and a book and a toy that not just African children are reading and playing with, but I can travel to Norway and someone knows about Selassie and loves Selassie's adventures. To me, that is a true sign that Selassie has made a global impact, and Africa is being put on the map for their stories, their characters, and everything that the continent has to display.
No, that's awesome. And so I always give my guests the opportunity to, kind of say some, last words. We have 2 minutes left, but I would give you the opportunity. It could be anything at all you want to say to the viewers and also to your future self, because the video would be online in perpetuity, hopefully. And so, something just as you projected 5 to 10 years, God willing, in 5 to 10 years, when we look back to this video, we can say that, yeah, this kind of prophetic declaration was said here first. So do you have, Ama and Esther, do you have any final words or anything you want to share? Maybe it could be about tomorrow's episode. It could be about anything at all about Afrotunes. Please, this is all yours.
Come on, do you want to go first?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I would like to make a shameless plug first that follow Afrotoons TV on YouTube. We have a new episode coming out. There'll be a teaser today, so I won't tell you on this live where they're going, but it's going to be very exciting and also very historically relevant. I will also say, for my future self, thank you for working this hard and making sure that the Afrotoons content came out really great so that kids all over the world can enjoy Selassie, enjoy the other shows that we're going to come out with, and feel like Africa is the destination to be. So, and also thank you to the Afrotoons team, because we are so amazing, and I'm so thankful that we found each other and are making this dream come true.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think my final words would be, for my future self, would be just keep going, don't stop. 5 years ago, Afrotoons was not even thing. Where we are today, 2.5 years ago, it didn't even look possible. The fact that, you know, in a year and a half, we've released a trailer, we've raised money, we have 5 episodes coming. That just didn't happen without a lot of hard work and, you know, and just, you know, keep moving, keep working with smart people, talented people, passionate people. I think a lot of the times as entrepreneurs, I know for myself, I get discouraged a lot. But what keeps me going is people telling me, keep going, just keep going, keep going. So I tell everybody who's building, keep going. And I tell myself in the next 5 to 10 years, also keep going. Thank you, Prince, so much for having us on this.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And it's a privilege actually to host the two of you. And I just want to say thank you for your time. I know how busy the both of you are, and I know it's also a weekend, so you know you've left all the family and all other responsibilities to be here. So I want to say a big thank you. For those of you watching, we have the QR code you can scan on the screen. So this will take you directly to the Afrotoons YouTube channel. Tomorrow we are going to have episode 2, and I am waiting. Like I have my squad waiting downstairs. So tomorrow would be waiting for the next episode. So please, if you want to watch the next episode, please scan the QR code on the screen and it will take you to the YouTube channel. You subscribe, don't forget, subscribe to the Afrotoons YouTube channel and also put on the notification icon, click on that icon so that when the next episode comes, you'll be notified as well. So I want to say a big thank you once again to Esther and Ama for making time to be on People Who Inspire. Again, my vision for this platform is to essentially celebrate people like you who go against the odds, who see a problem in society, and you don't just complain and you fold your arms, but rather you mobilize resources, your own time, dedication to address those issues. And for me, the kids, these are our future. The African child has been neglected for so long. Today on national television in most African countries, there is no kids content. There is no content that is targeted towards building the self-confidence of the African child. So what Afrotoons is doing is fantastic. So my own prediction for the future for Afrotoons as well. So permit me to also make this prediction that this is what I see. I'm seeing gaming studios as well, right? That would kind of foster healthy competition among the African child. So I see that, Xbox or PlayStation, you have a whole suite of Afrotoons studio games that the African child, can play. It could be Ludo, it could be Oware, it could be other, Aligoto, or all those things that we grew up with. So this is what I see as well. I see, a lot of franchising model also coming out of it. So I see Afrotoons even going beyond Africa, because there are also some Afro-Americans, Afro-Caribbeans and things like that, right? So my hope and prayer is that in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see Afrotoons all over the globe. And it is going to happen with people like you leading the company. I believe it's going to happen.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you for having us, Prince. This was really a great conversation.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. So once again, we are 3 minutes over time, but I want to thank all of you who tuned in. If you're watching this is People Who Inspire. My name is Prince, and you can find me also on LinkedIn and also on YouTube as well. And stay healthy, stay blessed until we meet again in the next episode of People Who Inspire. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.